In the verdant hills and dense forests of Manipur, a northeastern state of India, a protracted and violent struggle has unfolded over the decades. The Meitei insurgent groups, namely the United National Liberation Front, UNLF, the People's Liberation Army, PLA, and the Kanglai Pak Communist Party, KCP, have waged a relentless campaign against Indian security forces. Their operations, marked by ambushes, improvised explosive device, IED attacks, and targeted killings, have left an indelible mark on the region's history. The genesis of insurgency. The roots of this insurgency trace back to 1949, when Manipur was merged into the Indian Union. Many Meitei perceived this integration as coerced, leading to a sense of political disenfranchisement and cultural erosion. In response, various insurgent groups emerged, seeking either greater autonomy or complete independence from India. A chronicle of attacks. The insurgent groups have orchestrated numerous attacks against Indian security forces, each meticulously planned to maximize impact. Ambush in Chandel district, June 4, 2015. On a humid morning, a convoy of the 6th Dogra Regiment was navigating the treacherous terrains of Chandel district. Unbeknownst to them, insurgents lay in wait. The silence was shattered by a sudden explosion, followed by a hail of gunfire. 18 soldiers lost their lives in this meticulously planned ambush, which was later claimed by a coalition of insurgent groups, including the PLA and UNLF. Attack on Assam Rifles convoy, November 13, 2021. In the serene environs of Second Village, an Assam Rifles convoy, led by Colonel Viplav Tripathi, was ambushed. The insurgents unleashed a barrage of bullets and explosives, resulting in the tragic deaths of Colonel Tripathi, his wife, their young son, and 4 other soldiers. This brutal attack was attributed to the People's Liberation Army and the Manipur Naga People's Front. IED explosion in Imphal, May 8, 2018. The bustling city of Imphal was jolted by a powerful explosion near the Assam Rifles transit camp. The IED, planted by insurgents, detonated with devastating effect, injuring several security personnel and civilians. The KCP claimed responsibility, stating it was a protest against alleged military atrocities. Ambush in Tengnupal district, November 15, 2021. A routine patrol of the Assam Rifles was ambushed near the Indo-Myanmar border. Insurgents armed with sophisticated weaponry launched a surprise attack, resulting in casualties among the security personnel. The UNLF claimed responsibility, citing it as a retaliation against security operations in the region. Ceasefire agreements, a double-edged sword. In attempts to quell the violence, the Indian government has entered into ceasefire agreements with various insurgent groups. However, these truces have often been tenuous. Some factions have exploited the ceasefires to regroup, rearm, and strengthen their networks. Alarmingly, intelligence reports have indicated that certain insurgent groups maintain clandestine links with foreign entities, including Chinese and Burmese military establishments. These connections facilitate the procurement of sophisticated arms and training, posing a significant threat to national security. The geopolitical quagmire. The strategic location of Manipur, bordering Myanmar, adds layers of complexity to the insurgency. The porous borders have allowed insurgent groups to establish bases and training camps in Myanmar, often with the
Kuki people's plea for separate administration. In light of the growing violence, territorial encroachments, and political marginalization, the Kuki people are making a powerful plea for a separate administration. Their call is not just about political autonomy, but also about the survival of their cultural identity. The Kuki community feels that their unique way of life, language, and traditions are at risk of being erased as the Meitei population continues to push for greater control over their lands. The demand for a separate administration stems from a deep sense of disenfranchisement. Despite the Kuki people's efforts to safeguard their land and culture, they have been left vulnerable to external pressures, including violent attacks from Meitei forces. The Kuki people argue that the current political and administrative setup in Manipur does not adequately represent their interests. A separate administration would allow the Kuki community to govern themselves and protect their cultural heritage without the threat of territorial expansion by the Meitei people. A separate administration would also give the Kuki people greater control over their resources, education, and economic development, ensuring that they are not left behind in a rapidly changing political landscape. For the Kuki community, this is not just a political demand, but a necessity to preserve their very existence as a distinct ethnic group. The government's response: a crucial moment for action. The situation is now at a critical juncture. The Kuki people's protests have gained significant momentum, but the government has yet to take decisive action. The government of India must act swiftly to de-escalate the situation by enforcing the laws protecting buffer zones and ensuring that Meitei territorial expansion is halted. In addition, meaningful dialogue between the Kuki and Meitei communities must be initiated to address the root causes of the conflict. The government must also recognize the Kuki people's demand for a separate administration. By doing so, it can help preserve the cultural diversity of the region, ensuring that the Kuki community is not marginalized or displaced by the Meitei expansionist agenda. This is an opportunity for the Indian government to demonstrate its commitment to upholding the rights of minority groups and ensuring that all communities in Manipur are treated fairly. The future of the Kuki people. A call for unity and recognition. The ongoing protests are a testament to the resilience and determination of the Kuki people. They have long fought to preserve their way of life, and now they are standing up to ensure that their voices are heard. Their call for a separate administration is a call for justice, recognition, and the protection of their land and culture. For the Kuki people, this struggle is not just about territorial boundaries, but about preserving their identity in the face of overwhelming political pressure. The government must listen to their plea and take immediate action to address their grievances. Without recognition and a separate administrative framework, the Kuki people risk losing everything they hold dear. As the protests continue, it is clear that the Kuki people will not back down until their demands for justice, security, and autonomy are met. The government must act now to ensure that the Kuki people can continue to thrive and preserve their unique cultural heritage in the face of mounting challenges.
The UNLF Ceasefire, a tool for hidden agendas. The UNLF, one of the oldest and most prominent insurgent groups in Manipur, entered into a ceasefire agreement with the Indian government in an effort to reduce violence and pave the way for dialogue. While such agreements are typically seen as steps toward de-escalation, in the case of the UNLF and other Meitei groups, the ceasefire has reportedly become a mechanism for perpetuating violence and advancing political agendas. Exploitation of ceasefire for free movement. The ceasefire allows insurgents to move more freely across the state under the guise of adhering to the peace process. Instead of utilizing this freedom for constructive engagement, reports suggest that Meitei insurgents are using it to mobilize resources, expand their influence, and target other ethnic communities, particularly the Kuki population. These actions not only violate the spirit of the ceasefire, but also exacerbate the ethnic divide, perpetuating cycles of violence and mistrust. Targeting Kukis, a hidden agenda. The recent surge in violence against Kukis is a glaring example of how the ceasefire is being misused. Insurgent factions, allegedly backed by certain elements within the Meitei political leadership, are using the ceasefire as a shield to carry out attacks on Kuki villages, displacing thousands, and igniting fear. This ethnic targeting is not just an isolated act of insurgency. It appears to align with a broader political agenda to consolidate Meitei dominance in the region, political complicity, and hidden agendas. the role of the Meitei-dominated political leadership in Manipur has come under scrutiny. Allegations of tacit support for insurgent activities against Kukis have fueled suspicions of a coordinated agenda. The ceasefire, rather than serving as a peace-building mechanism, is being weaponized to undermine the Kuki community's demands for equal rights and representation. This complicity erodes trust in the state government and underscores the need for external intervention to ensure impartial governance. The case for separate administration. In the face of persistent ethnic violence, the idea of a separate administration for the hill districts of Manipur